Shabbat Shalom, Solel. Shabbat Shalom, Arlene. Shabbat Shalom, Ron.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, Ron. It's wonderful to see everybody again this week. You've had a school break. Now everything is back to online learning and online shul, but we're so happy to have everybody join us this evening.
So we're going to welcome Shabbat. Ron, what are you going to start us off with?
I think in honor of Shabbat, I think starting with the Shema would be a wonderful way to start off this Friday evening. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
That's such a nice way to start Shabbat. The calmness and the beauty of thinking of the peace of Shabbat. And that's really amplified when we light the candles and bring that beautiful warmth and glow of Shabbat into our lives. So as I light our candles for Shabbat, I want everybody to take a deep, deep breath and let that calmness and peace of Shabbat come over us as we bring that light of God's presence into our very, very souls. And we say, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So I'm going to move these out of the way so I can tell our story. And the story I found today has a little bit to do with a holiday that's coming up, Lag BaOmer. It has a little bit to do with what I consider a real hero. It has a little bit to do with, I think, love, the love between a husband and wife. And of course, it has a little bit to do with one of my favorite animals, a donkey. And this is the story of the donkey in the garden. And that's from our PJ Library books. And it begins with a man called Akiva. And Akiva was all grown up. He wasn't a child, and he had a wife named Rachel, and he had a job. He was a shepherd, and he had a house. Well, maybe not quite a house. It was a barn full of straw that kept the two of them warm in the winter and gave them some shade in the summer. Rachel had left a home that was beautiful and full of riches. Akiva knew that although he was poor and he didn't even know how to read or how to write, Rachel loved him so much and she believed in him. And he hoped that one day the two of them would have a better life. One morning, Rachel and Akiva went for a walk and they passed beautiful flower beds, vines with ripe grapes, and a little house where children were learning to read and write. And Rachel said to her husband, "Wouldn't you like to go inside and learn how to read and write?" She knew that even though her husband was 40 years old and big and strong and wise, he was sad that he couldn't read or write. Akiva looked down at all the small children running past his feet, and he said, Can you see anybody as tall as I am? I'm a shepherd. When I stand tall, I can see where each and every lamb has wandered. And he's towering over all the children. I think they'd laugh at me if I tried to squeeze into one of their tiny benches. The next morning, Rachel called out to Akiva in the garden. I want to show you something. It's a donkey, but it's not a regular donkey. It's a donkey with a garden on its back. A donkey with a garden on its back? Yes, said Rachel, a very special donkey. And there is the donkey with the garden on his back. It's quite a garden, isn't it? Well, that was a special donkey. And Rachel insisted that they take that donkey with them as they strolled into the marketplace with all the beautiful flowers and fruits glowing on the donkey's back. And everybody started saying, look, a donkey, a garden donkey, a donkey with a garden on its back. Rachel turned to Akiva and said, I told you, this is a special donkey. The next day, Akiva and Rachel once again walked past the school, and Rachel said, Akiva, won't you try to go in? And Akiva gazed at all those letters on the writing board, and he didn't know one from the other. And then he looked down at himself and he saw such big hands. And he said, I'm a shepherd, Rachel. If one of my sheep is weak or one of my lambs is looking for its mother, I can pick it up in my strong arms. And he swept an animal that was nearby into his arms. And everybody would laugh if I put a little tiny pen into my hands. Rachel smiled and said, well, if you don't want to go to school, will you come back with me to the market? With the donkey? Said Akiva. Yeah, the same donkey, said Rachel, the one with the garden on its back. And again, they went to the market, and again, everyone laughed and pointed to the donkey and said, donkey garden, and they all laughed and pointed out the donkey with the garden on its back. On the third day, Rachel suggested once again that Akiva go learn with the children, and again he refused. Well, the garden on my donkey is looking lovelier than ever, said Rachel, because it had grown beautifully. So it will draw even more attention in the marketplace, said Akiva. And off they went to the marketplace. Indeed, the garden had blossomed and there were flowers and fruits and berries. But this time, nobody looked at the donkey. No one said, garden donkey, or look at that donkey. A little girl came by and she plucked a purple grape off the donkey's back. And a young boy came by and he took some of the stalks of wheat to make kind of a bracelet for his sister. And an old man picked a red flower for his granddaughter. And Akiva said, I guess they've gotten used to seeing a donkey with its garden on a garden on its back. I think they like it, said Rachel. Akiva and Rachel both laughed. Suddenly, Akiva understood what Rachel had been trying to tell him. They got used to seeing something that was a little bit different. Just the way Akiva could go to school and the other children would get used to seeing him. So from that day on, while Rachel looked after all the sheep on her own, Akiva went to school. And on the first day, he was nervous and he tried to hide his long legs between the benches. And on the second day, he hunched over his work with his pen disappearing into his huge hand. And there he is, studying with the children. But notice, they don't notice him. And on the third day, a little boy asked Akiva to ask Akiva to help him hold up the heavy alphabet board. Such a big man, said the child. Such clever children, said Akiva. And on the fourth day, he wrote his very first letter. And on the fifth day, Akiva wrote his first word, and many days went by, and Akiva continued to learn to read and write. And finally, he became a true scholar. He knew how to interpret every letter of the Torah. He became a rabbi and a teacher, and his name has become known to the people of every generation. In fact, his names and his teachings, including love your neighbor as yourself, are still known to this day. One can learn at any time. One can make a contribution at any time. We don't always have to point out the one that's different. We just have to welcome him, and we will have many Rabbi Akivas in our midst. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and I hope you get the book from TJ Library and read the lovely story of the donkey and the garden.
That is a great story, Arlene. I really love the teachings that Rachel and Akiva brought to us. And, you know, it reminds us not only that we can learn and start learning at any age, but it also, the story of the garden on the back of the donkey reminds us of what we learned this week in the Parsha, which is Kiddushim. It says, you shall be holy because God is holy. And it reminds us that each of us is holy because we are like God, that we are B'Tselem Elohim, made in God's image, that each one of us is sacred, and each one of us, no matter whoever we are, there is holiness present within us. Doesn't matter how old or how young or what we look like or how much we have studied or how much we haven't studied, you know, what our identity is, what our gender is, what our family is made up of. All of us are B'Tselem Elohim. We're made in God's image. We're all holy.
Absolutely, and I love the story as well, Rabbi. So Ron, before we do our regular songs, we've had a bit of a whole week without celebrating birthdays, and I know somebody had to have a birthday this past week. I know in our family, we had Rihanna and Talia had a birthday this past week or so. Robin, I think a week ago. Rabbi, any birthdays in your family?
Not this week, no, but no, you have a lot of April birthdays in your family.
Well, this isn't quite a birthday, but there is a very special event this Saturday where one of our very special students, Aviva Van Tine, is going to be called to the Torah as she becomes a bat mitzvah, a child of the Torah. And we are so proud of Aviva. It must be pretty close to her birthday, but it may be her 14th birthday since she had to delay the ceremony of becoming a bat mitzvah. So as we sing happy birthday to everyone, a special happy birthday to Aviva. We are so very proud of you.
And we're very, very proud of Aviva. As you're called to the Torah on the Shabbat, we wish you blessings and joy for you and all of your family. Ron, can you lead us in a Yom Huledet for everyone?
Definitely. All right, Mazel Tov, Aviva. Yom Huledet Sameach. Yom Huledet Sameach. Yom Huledet Sameach. Woohoo! Yom Huledet Sameach. Happy birthday, everyone.
Thank you, Ron. Toda rabah.
And shall we finish off with a few song, Rabbi Arlene? Shall we?
That'd be great.
All right. So I wanted to finish with two today. Hashki Venu, which we haven't heard in a while, and then a fun one to end off the Shabbat with. So. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Spread guide us in wisdom, compassion, trust. Hashkivenu Adonai guys know what song this is. We used to do this a lot with all of you Sunday school children who are now no longer Sunday school children. You guys did this a lot. I learned it from you. And all of you Sunday school children who are still Sunday school children, you learned it from me. So, just take those old farim off the shelf. I wanna sit and learn it by myself. Today's novels ain't got the same soul. I love that old time Torah scroll. Why don't you take me to the disco? Oh, you won't even get me out on the floor. In 10 minutes I'll be out for the door. I love that old time Torah scroll. I love that old time Torah scroll. And that type of learning really soothes the soul. I'll reminisce about the words of old. I love that old time Torah scroll. Don't try and make me do the horror. Just give me something that will soothe my soul. There's only one way you will reach your goal. I love that old time Torah scroll. Call me a rabbi, nah. Don't call me rabbi, call me what you will. Say I'm old-fashioned, say I'm over the hill. Today's novels ain't got the same soul. I love that old time Torah scroll. I love that old time Torah scroll. That type of learning really soothes the soul. I reminisce about the words of old. I love that old time scroll. Shabbat shalom, guys. Have a great Shabbat.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. We'll see you all tomorrow morning if you're able to join us for the Shabbat service. And I think it's the end of the month. We're going to be having Havdalah again with Sonia. You'll be getting notification about that as well. So Rabbi, have a wonderful evening and Shabbat shalom. And Ron, you too.
Shabbat shalom all.
Shabbat shalom.